What the fuck's going on, Juice Heads? We are live. It's been, I don't know, 5 to 6 weeks since I've done a pro wrestling show. I really got to get this channel back on track because, God, those 9 to 10 listeners per episode, I'm really sorry about that. I know people can tend to jump off the bandwagon once you're gone for so long, but I was going through some transitions for those that don't watch my other shows. I have what I would call a real job now. I have 3 pages of notes for tonight, though. Don't worry. And you know what? I really haven't watched too much wrestling in the last 5 to 6 weeks. Anyway, I never knew when the hell AEW was on. Not that I don't DVR it, because I do, but I like it on Wednesday. I feel like it's just a good night for it. I feel like it fits. I like when they have Saturday pay-per-views. I think for some reason their pay-per-view was Sunday night on Memorial Weekend, which to me is odd. I don't know. I just think Saturday night's cool. Reminds me of boxing, UFC. Feels more important to have it on a Saturday night. Now you can make the argument Super Bowl Sunday or whatever, but I think it's different, and I think it's good. I think it works for them. And again, like, how did TNA try to make themselves different? They had a 6-sided ring. Oh, who gives a fuck? And an X division, which I don't even know if that was really ever defined what that meant. I think like maybe it was like a hardcore division or something, or a light heavyweight, but there were heavyweights in it. Whatever. All I'm saying is, I think having a pay-per-view on Saturday, if you're going to try to stand out and be different, is a good thing, and it's a much better thing than a fucking 6-sided ring. My wrestling friends out there. So let's get to it. Speaking of AEW, and again, I've said this a million times. In no way is AEW a perfect fucking show, but it is far superior than anything the WWE is doing. NXT is a very close second, I will admit, and although NXT does have its issues, way better than Raw and SmackDown. Way, way, way better than Raw and SmackDown. And we'll get to that. Well, you know, and again, this is not the show to come for results. I want to give that disclaimer for anybody that might be watching for the first time. I'm a 30-year fan. I have more of a macro take. I'm not going to break down a match. I'm not going to rate a match. In the year 2021, if you're wrestling on national TV, odds are you deserve to be. And everybody, every now and then, has a shitty day at the office. So I don't really think anybody that you can see on TV on a national level is underqualified to be there. And that works both ways, too. I'm sure there's plenty of people that deserve to be there that aren't. But there can only be so many spots. And honestly, there's so much content. If I let my YouTube run, because I'm subscribed to the AEW channel on YouTube, there's like, I think they do like another 4+ hours of content a week in addition to their Dynamite on now back to Wednesday nights, thankfully. But yeah, look, I'm enjoying. Speaking of AEW, we'll start with that. I'm enjoying this whole Christian Matt Hardy. They're with their factions, you know. Christian's taking a liking to Jungle Boy Jack, which is great. Young kid, he's really getting over in a good way. Matt Hardy has been around 20 plus years. Christian's been around 20 plus years, right? They have a well-documented history, so it's kind of cool to see them sort of helping out the younger guys, but also they still want to be active. In other places, they can't necessarily do that, right? In other places, they just be putting over people getting called up from NXT that will end up getting buried like 6 months later, like a la Jericho Fandango kind of thing. So that's good espresso coffee, homemade. How do you like that? But good shit, man. And Christian, dude, this guy's never looked better. And I don't know how old he is, but I gotta assume if I'm 36, he's got to be at least 45, at least. So props to Pillman. Pillman. I had my notes. Props to Brian Pillman Jr. also, though, for looking very good. He's a strapping young man. But But I just really do enjoy the overall presentation of AEW. It feels like everything on the show means something, and I've said this before. When you watch that bloated 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, it feels like they're trying to fill time. Even SmackDown, because added together, I don't consider NXT the third brand. To me, NXT is still their developmental whatever. I don't care that it's on USA. I think that was a big mistake putting that on USA, and I think it really devalued the network. But I mean, when you're trying to fill 5 hours of content a week, it feels like they're just trying to fucking kill time. When you have one show for 2 hours a week, it feels like they're trying to fit in things that matter. And that's why you'll see like a 30 to 60 second vignette or backstage thing, and then they got to get to something else, right? And NXT sort of does the same thing. Very, very similar, and we'll get to that because I have it in my notes here. But the overall presentation is so much more of like a shoot presentation. And again, when I was a kid in the 90s, at least in the early 90s, the presentation was so much more like you were watching a sport. And we know what it is. We know what the hell we're watching. Okay, we know it's not really a shoot. But if you present it like a shoot, you're going to capture my interest. Because when I can see how phony and fake and disbelievable everything is, coming down to the camera work with the shaky cams and the zoom in, zoom out, when everything is just so worked. And then on top of it, you have shows on E out of kayfabe. We all know kayfabe is dead, but it just takes me so out of it. And you can tell I haven't done a solo show in a long time because my fucking voice keeps cracking like I'm a teenager trying to get a hand job at the movies for the first time. Oh boy. But hey, we're getting back. There's only one way to get back on the bike, and that's to get back the fuck on it and pedal. So I don't care if 10 people watch this or 5 people watch it or if it's just me. I'm doing this because it's fun and I love to talk wrestling. And again, not a recap show, but maybe there's some things I notice as being a fan for a few decades that maybe some other people don't notice, and maybe you like my personality, maybe you like my take on things. And again, I try my best not to be negative. I really do. And for all the negativity that does go on in the world of pro wrestling these days, I don't blame the talent for any of it. I mean, yeah, sometimes the talent fucks up, sure. But especially with the WWE. And I have a really great example with Andrade, the guy formerly known as Andrade, Cien Almas, then not Andrade or whatever. But let's stay on AEW for now. Y2J, I know he doesn't like to be called that anymore, but I kind of always call him Y2J. Great on commentary, and his wrestling acumen is awesome. Like, you could totally tell this guy was a fan before he ever laced up a pair of boots. And it shows. It shows through the TV. It shows when you can hear him on the commentary. And I just really enjoy that. I really enjoy the show from the perspective of someone that's not only accomplished all he's accomplished, but you could tell loves the business, right? And what does JR always say, who shot, by the way? Apparently he said WWE Dynamite. I didn't catch that, but apparently he said that. So I don't want to deliver fake news, but if I saw that on Hannibal, so if Hannibal said it, it's got to be true. He's a super credible guy. But JR did say the wrestlers provide the music and the commentators provide the lyrics. And Jericho's really good at that. And then, again, he never really broke out of character. When his buddies were in danger, he dropped his headset and went out and tried to protect his buddies. That's what you would do, right? There's no like invisible wall that we've been seeing for the last 10, maybe 15 years in pro wrestling, where there's these rivals and one's on stage and the other's in the ring, but there's like this invisible brick wall that like they can't just collide. Like there's just something invisible stopping them. God, I hate that. I hate that. Realism, people. We understand it's a work, but present it like a shoot, and the fans will come back. It doesn't need to be fucking R-rated, X-rated. Every chick goes onto Playboy. Yeah, that stuff helps, and it might get eyeballs on it that might not normally watch it. But the state of pro wrestling is not good right now in terms of viewership and fan base. But if you want to get at least the fan base back, I don't mean the super high ultra ratings that they got in the late '90s and early 2000s. But if you at least want to get your hold right now, I would say, as a guess, they probably have about 35% of their fan base that they had maybe like in 2007, 2006 ish. If you want to build that fan base back up, start with a shoot presentation. Make it look real. All right? Stop going and peeling the curtain back. We don't want to see how the sausage is made. We just don't. Now, is it cool when The Undertaker goes on the Joe Rogan Experience? Yeah, that's fucking awesome. At this point, he's been The Undertaker for fucking 30 years. We get it. And he's got some cool stories to tell. And it's cool to see the two worlds of the JRE and the Undertaker representing the WWE kind of collide. Because he's had on people like DDP and Jake the Snake, but that's not quite the same level as having an Undertaker on. So, yes, there are certain exceptions, I would say. But just in terms of your presentation, when you're on national TV or YouTube or wherever you're distributing your product to, realism. Realism is key, in my opinion. Again, is there room for hokiness and like some comedy here, some comedy there? Yeah, if it's entertaining. Like, and we're gonna get to this later too. Like, I'll take it from here, nurse. Right? I mean, that was fucking. To this day, that's great. To this day, when Austin fought Booker T in the grocery store, that was great. I don't even know if that was a sanctioned match or just a grocery store brawl or random. Like, I don't know if like Austin was stalking Booker T and found him in the grocery store, and it just whatever happened ensued. But that's great stuff. That's great stuff. So there is room for stuff like that. But the majority of it should be a shoot-like presentation, in my opinion. Now, speaking of Brian Pillman Jr., who's looking good, and for a guy that allegedly just grew up playing video games and was abused as a kid, and we all saw the dark side of the ring, and it's pretty sad how this kid had to grow up. So to see him become what we heard he was as a kid to where he is now, he looks awesome. He's got a pretty good in-ring repertoire. He looks a lot like his father. He's got a good thing going with the Varsity Blondes. I like it. I thought his match with Miro was good. I'm happy to see Miro doing his thing in AEW because, honestly, he reminds me of like his NXT persona because I believe in NXT, the talent has a lot more creative control over what they're doing with their character. And to me, Miro reminds me of kind of what he should have been in the WWE. And then I just jotted down, why was Rusev Day squashed? Because it wasn't conceived in a room of 80 fucking writers that know nothing about wrestling. Was it squashed because it wasn't exactly Vince McMahon's idea? I mean, I would fucking put on, I believe they were on the Smackdown brand if there was a brand split at the time. But I remember specifically putting on the WWE because I've been relatively sour on it for years and years and years now. But goddamn did I love the Rusev Day. And before that, I gotta tell you, I love the Vaudevillains. I thought that was an awesome fucking gimmick. And it's one of those things where, you know, they say if you have to explain your joke, is probably not funny. You look at the vaudevillains, and the same goes for sort of like your wrestling gimmick or your wrestling character. You look at them and you just get it. You just know what it is, and that's awesome. I think the vaudevillains were fucking awesome, and super talented guys as well. But yeah, poor Rusev Day. But good to see Miro doing good things now. In AEW, he's got the I guess their version of the Intercontinental Belt or whatever. So that's great. Now, speaking of people sort of being held down or held back or not having the creative control that maybe they have in NXT, when Andrade Cien almost got called up to the main roster, yeah, he had Selena Vega with him, which was great. But I think they barely ever let the guy talk. And again, who cares if he could really speak English or not? I don't care. I've said this a million times about Asuka. She doesn't, instead of making her sound like a retard, and she speaks English very well for someone from Japan, by the way, but she sounds retarded to like an American trying to hear English. Give her a fucking mouthpiece, like a Mr. Fuji type character that's bilingual, that she could say whatever the fuck she wants in Japanese with some conviction, right? And then you have the manager fucking translate. I don't see the problem. But again, and I've heard this from numerous shooting interviews, Vince McMahon just gets a hoot and a holler out of that. He's really I don't think he should be really running this company anymore. Look, somehow they're making money, but even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. Even a garbage can gets a steak. Because all I know is Fox and NBC Universal, which owns USA, I know they're not happy with the fucking ratings. Because they thought of this as an investment, right? And I don't think it's working out too well. So when they have to re-up their Raw deal and their Smackdown deal, I don't think it's going to be worth nearly as much money. The network, who knows? I subscribe to Peacock because I'm paying the same $9.99. I'm getting most of the same shit that NBC didn't edit out, and I get other content too. So it's not like it's like it's like I'm spending the same money, but I'm getting more for it. So I should have muted myself there. So unprofessional to cough on a podcast. So I owe somebody out there a beer, the one person watching. But yeah, man, Andrade, I guess he goes by Andrade El Idolo. I guess he's feuding with Matt Sydal, and he was calling him Matt something. And look, he could speak English good enough, but I think he was doing like a little Spanglish, which is probably native and comfortable for him. Dude, this guy could talk. He's got a great look. He's got a great presence to him. He could work in the ring, and he could talk. He's got what I would say is it. So, what's the problem, WWE? Why were you underutilizing him and misusing him? Not that he had to be a top guy or anything like that, but just like the few minutes he was used on Wednesday night, which would be last night. I'm streaming this out live the night before SmackDown, but there's usually like a 12 to 16 hour delay before it actually gets posted. So this will post on Friday, July 2nd, hence SmackDown pregame. But I was very impressed. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this guy can do in AEW. And the thing about AEW that I really like is you're getting a chance to see what a lot of these guys can do that got either lost in the shuffle or had bad creative or bad writing or whatever the case might be. You want to say they were underutilized. They have a chance now. And look, not everybody can be the Stone Cold or the Hulk Hogan or the Rock of the show. But everybody should have a chance to steal the show. And I just really, really liked what Andrade had. And again, it was just a simple backstage segment, but I never saw anything like that in the WWE with him. So I was very impressed by that. And again, someone who I'm not such a big fan of, Nyla Rose. But hey, if all of the biological females are cool with Nyla, working with Nyla Rose and whatever, because she's like 4 times the size of everybody else in the women's division, then I'm cool with it. I have nothing against Nyla Rose personally. I just think it's a little strange. Like I was saying, shoot presentation. Nobody should be beating Nyla Rose. But then again, nobody should have ever really beaten Andre the Giant either. So, again, like I said, as long as they're cool with it, I'm cool with it. Doesn't make a difference to me. It doesn't affect my life. But, whatever. I guess it's a sign of the times. But let's just say she's not my favorite. But I did like her pairing up with Vicki Guerrero. I thought that was really cool. Love Vicki. I liked their little tag team gimmick presentation that they had. And I think it's a good pairing. And I was actually very entertained by it. So I hope they keep going in that direction. I hope they keep those two paired up. And I'd like to see what they can do down the road. Because you have like the big, I'm going to call Nyla Rose, for lack of a better term, the big brute of the group. And then you have Vicki, who's not even a wrestler at all. And so if you put them in the tag division, I don't know if there's an official women's tag division, or they just have tag team matches, but I like that. I think that works really well. I think they're very complimentary of each other. So that's my favorite thing I've seen from Nyla Rose since the inception of AEW. So good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see what else. Road Rage. Oh, I said I would look at the Road Rager card. So another thing, and I don't know if NXT is like copying them, but I really enjoy that AEW puts on these Clash of the Champions like shows. Something that WWE never really did. I mean, maybe if you want to consider Saturday night's main event like a Clash of the Champions type thing, then I guess yeah. But Clash of the Champions was, and I was not even a WCW fan, but Clash of the Champions was awesome. You know, I'm checking to see if they have a Wikipedia page. And again, I'm not like a preview show or a post show. This is pregame, motherfucker. But I just want to see if they have something. I just want to see if they have something for this. AEW Dynamite specials, okay. I'm not sharing my screen. Let's share my screen. For all those for the single person watching out there. Here we go. All right, let's see. July. Yep, this would be it. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Road Rager, and there's a link for it, but it takes you back to this regular page. I wonder if you go to the AEW site, if they have like a preview for it. Let's see. Go to events. We'll go to details. All right, cool. So there's 5 matches announced. Jericho versus MJF. All right. We know that's going to be good. We got Andrade versus Matt something, which I actually thought that was pretty good. And again, I thought this guy had such a shitty personality in the WWE, like in a shoot way. I thought he could work in the ring and he put on some good matches. but I felt like he had sort of like X-Pac heat with me personally. We got a South Beach strap match between Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall, so look for that to be good. Pinnacle and Inner Circle 6-man tag. It's a good card for a Dynamite show. And then you have the Bunny and the Blade versus Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy in a mixed tag match. I don't see any issues with this. I don't know if they're going to announce any more matches. The one thing I do want to know is what happened to the Butcher? Is he still around? Someone let me know what happened to the Butcher. But yeah, that looks to be a good show. So I'm looking forward to that. Next thing I got for you guys is NXT. And again, this isn't really a recap show, although in some ways it is. I'm just trying to give you my take on the things I notice that maybe you're not hearing on other shows. And again, just my unique, awesome personality. That was a bad joke. We all know my personality's great. But yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, I did not watch Hell in a Cell, but I heard there were more women's matches on it than men's matches. And I just got to ask why. And I heard Fox was unhappy that, or was Fox? No, I heard someone was unhappy. Peacock, which would be NBC Universal, they were unhappy that they gave away the Roman Reigns main event match on Fox. Why would they do that? The ratings are already in the shitter. Just because you're saying you're going to take a match from a pay-per-view no one cares about and put said match on Friday Night Smackdown for free, I don't think they had a ratings pop for that. I could be wrong. But when I say a ratings pop, I mean like 10%, 20%, 30%. Pretty sure that didn't happen. But again, I could be wrong. But I gotta say, that pay-per-view Evolution they did a few years back. Look, I watched it. It wasn't bad. It was a decent show. But I've said this a million times, and you could agree with me or disagree with me. This is just my opinion. And nobody loves women more than me. But when I watch wrestling, I want to watch two guys in their underwear pretend to kick the shit out of each other. With an occasional women's match here and there. And Evolution allegedly was their lowest rated pay-per-view in the history of the company. So I think that kind of proves my point. But anywho, NXT started this week with a match, a triple threat tag match, I guess for number one contender for the Great American Bash Show, which I guess I don't know who's copying who. I feel like it was AEW's idea first to do like these Clash of the Champions type shows. And it feels like NXT next week is doing Great American Bash instead of just NXT. Now again, that's all good and fine because their pay-per-views traditionally have been just take over whatever. But why not take over Great American Bash? I don't know, just an idea. Because it looks too much like now they're copying fucking AEW, in my opinion. But it just felt like in AEW when I watched that first, it felt like there was some sort of rhyme and reason for whatever I was watching, for whatever match was on, whatever interview, whatever segment, whatever vignette. It felt like there was some sort of rhyme and reason to it. I go to NXT, and it's just like three random women's tag teams having a match for a number one contender for Great American Bash. And it's just become so formulaic. Like, I wonder, and I can't answer this because I really don't watch these shows that religiously. I'm just a longtime fan. I'm probably like, in 2021, I'm probably more of a casual fan. But overall, for 30 years, I'd say I'm a pretty hardcore fan. But it just feels very formulaic, no matter what WWE product I'm watching. Now, with that said, NXT is by far their best product by a mile. And again, I don't consider them the third brand. I don't care if they're on USA or not. It's their developmental. They had to shift around a couple faces when they went to USA Network. Whatever. It's still their developmental, in my opinion. And again, and this happens in AEW too. Don't get me wrong. The spot fests. Again, and I've talked about this before. I like to watch it as if it's a shoot. All right? And I know there's going to be ridiculous things like the Hollywood Backlot Brawl from WrestleMania 12. And I'll take it from here, Nurse, which we talked about earlier. But when you're in the middle of a fucking match, like a match in the squared circle, and you have 3 tag teams consisting of 2 people each, and you have like however they're set up in the corner, and they're trying to do like a triple, double, triple fucking superplex powerbomb move. It's just like there's no way. Just stop. Just stop. What? I DVR'd it, but I would have changed the channel if it was live. Now, the move did get blocked. They didn't end up going through with that move, but we've seen that spot. And again, it's just like when there's 8 people outside of the ring and they're all just waiting to get dived on or take a splash from someone from the top rope. Yeah, 8 people are just all standing there like Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat waiting to take a fatality. It's ridiculous. And I really wish, I'm not saying don't do them at all, but I just would like to see a lot less of these spot fests. And again, I'm just a fan. I never had the balls to get into a ring, so if anybody in the business ever sees this, I say this as a fan, with all due respect. Still probably hate me anyway. That's okay. That's okay. Because I respect what the fuck you do. No matter how much I might hate some of your spots. And then they did a promo for a new breakout tournament. And I'm thinking to myself, they just made all these cuts, which made sense. I don't agree with everybody that they cut. But they made these cuts because they did it for profitability reasons, right? For the shareholders. But in wrestling logic, like shoot wrestling logic, the roster's just bloated, man. The Raw roster's bloated. SmackDown roster's bloated. And to a certain degree, the NXT roster's even bloated. And I know, like, in NXT, there's probably like a sub-roster of talent that just stays at the Performance Center that's not quite ready to be on TV yet. So I don't really count them. That's like their farm system. But are they really in a position to be trying to create more breakout stars when their roster's already so fucking bloated? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think they need to make more cuts. And you know what? Even though pro wrestling isn't in the greatest shape in the world right now, there's somewhere to work for everybody. I'm not a proponent of anybody losing their job, but there's plenty of places to work. Plenty of places to work. And I'm so glad that there's AEW. And again, AEW is not the greatest thing in the world. It has its own issues. But again, I'm going to beat this dead horse with a stick. Far superior product. So I'm just going to type in, I just want to see what comes up. WWF 1998. When they were practically in their peak. Royal Rumble comes up. But let's see if, like, I don't know if Wikipedia breaks down the WWF by year. Oh, this is the official site. We don't want that. We don't want their propaganda. But I think Wikipedia just may break down the roster by year. So we'll see. And if not, I'll just make it. Here's what I'm going to do. 1998 WWF roster. Full roster. Here we go. Perfect. So 86 people. And that looks to include valets and managers, as well as, women's wrestlers. I don't know why I said that in quotes, because, like, Tori was a real women's wrestler, right? Sunny was a valet. Sable was kind of like a hybrid, but really a valet. Luna Vachon was a wrestler that did valet. Linda, I guess, was just on-screen talent. Jacqueline was a valet, but definitely a wrestler. Deborah, valet. But my point is, in 1998, they had 86 people on the roster, including a McMahon or two. Now let's do 2020 WWE roster. I don't know if there's a similar page or what. This is great. Shout out to this page. All right. Let's just make sure we're still on 98 there. I'm going to close out. We're going to share. There's got to be an easier way to do this. But let's see. 313. All right. Their roster is fucking triple, almost quadruple, actually closer to quadruple of what it was in 1998, when it was actually a good fucking show to watch. All right? So they need to cut like 200 people. And this is not personal. There's plenty of places to work. But yeah, that's a big fucking problem. That's a really big fucking problem. And nothing like that is even really in my notes, except for that their shit's bloated. But yeah, that's my rant about the, because I don't know anything about the new breakout tournament on NXT, but the way they presented it was as if it was like all new superstars that we haven't seen yet making their debut in this tournament. That was my perception. I could be wrong, but that was the impression I got. Now, good things on NXT. Karrion Kross. He's the real deal. He's got the size. He can talk. I can't talk because I haven't done a solo show in so long. He can work. He's got a great in-ring repertoire. And he's believable. How many of the guys on any roster, whether it's WWE, Raw, Smackdown, NXT, AEW, how many of these people on all of these rosters, if you're a grown-ass man, do you feel like could really kick your ass if you got into some sort of altercation with them? A lot? Yeah. Not all of them. You go back to that 98 roster, and I could do a whole show on this. But most of those guys look like and feel like they're going to kick your fucking ass. Unless you're Shawn Michaels in a bar mouthing off the submarines. I'd be a little, I'm saying, a little different story. But hey, Shawn Michaels is reformed now, and no need to go there. But Kross is doing awesome. And again, I have mixed feelings about Kross because I want to see him go to the main roster, but I don't want to see them fuck him up. And he's got the valet, and I believe she's a worker also, but she's perfect as his valet. Don't fuck it up. If she's going to get paid the same to wrestle or be a valet, just let her be a fucking valet for the same money. Because she's doing great. Gargano. I'm liking their program. Gargano had a nice, almost felt like a work shoot promo. If the less written it feels, the better I feel about it. And the better it comes across on the TV. So I really enjoyed that. Um, and I guess Samoa Joe came to the ring, who, by the way, I'm really glad they rehired. He deserves to be working for Vince. He's deserving. If they had to cut the roster to 200 people, he's on it without a doubt. Even if it's not in ring, which I believe he will come back at some point in ring. I didn't use the cough button again. Fuck me. I got a cough button. God damn it. I got to start using it better. But it sort of reminded me of a pull apart, like a work shoot pull apart, like Austin and Tyson back in '98. So I did appreciate that because it felt fucking real. And you know what else feels a little bit too real? Because I'm on YouTube, I can't quite say the V word, so I've been saying V card. And for all those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's that thing that goes in your arm, that sticks in your arm, that they want you to get. There's so many commercials for this thing that goes in your arm. And the WWE commercials, I think all the commercials are creepy to begin with. But the WWE ones, I think, are like extra creepy. And I thought after like 5 to 6 weeks of not really watching and paying attention to the product that they would like tone it down a bit. But it's like the opposite. They've been just going all out with these creepy ass V card commercials, and I would just really prefer not to see that. I think everybody's health is their own private information, and people should stop trying to force things on other people. If they want it, get it. If you don't want to get it, don't get it. Leave everybody alone. It's their fucking decision. It's their fucking decision. My body, my choice, right? We're not going to get into politics on this show. I talk politics a lot on some other shows, but I just wish those promos would stop. But again, I wish a lot of things. Let's get to LA Knight. Guy has a great look. I really haven't seen him do too much in-ring work, honestly, and that's my fault. That's my fault for just not watching enough of the product. But, my God. At first, I kind of complimented him with his mic skills and said, yeah, he sounds like The Rock, and if you're going to imitate a guy, you might as well imitate The Rock. But it's like a deep fake. Now, when they do a deep fake, you still need someone to do the voice, as far as I know. For example, the deep fake show the South Park creators made of Trump, they had like a guy doing Trump's voice. I'm not sure if they got the voice part down yet, and maybe they did, and I'm wrong. But he sounds like, if there were such a thing as like a voice deep fake, this guy sounds like a deep fake version of a deep fake of the 1999 version of Rock. And at first I thought like, okay, yeah, cool. But week after week of it, it's just like, dude, get your own shtick. I understand what you're doing, and if you're gonna emulate somebody, nobody better to fucking emulate than Rock. But be a little more original. I mean, it's like I could close my eyes when he's talking on the mic, and I could see like the 1999 Raw set and the Elvis fucking sideburns, and and the whole thing, and the whole People's Package. So I think he's a really talented guy. I think he's got a great look. I think he might even have that it factor. But just stop verbatim sounding like 1999 Rock. Even 1999 Rock became 2001 Rock, 2000/2001 Rock. And even 2001/2002 Rock became Jerk Off Hollywood Rock in 03. And even Jerk Off Hollywood Rock in 03 became last match at WrestleMania 20 Rock in 04, which was like a different Rock. And then when he came back in 2011, it was still The Rock, but it was not 1999 Rock. So I would just like to see LA Knight evolve. If the word verbality exists, or if I just made that up, I don't know. But just verbally, I would like to see him evolve a little bit and be a little bit more original. Just put his spin on it. Because he's got the skills. He's emulating the right guy. But I would just like to see him be a little bit more creative with it and do his own thing a little bit more and put his own spin on it. Mr. Miyagi, if you get my point. That leads me to Tommaso Ciampa. Speaking of guys who can talk, before I said Karrion Kross was the real deal. He's got it all. I feel the same way about Ciampa. And I believe Ciampa has even said he never wants to go to the main roster. And you know what? I don't fucking blame him. I'm pretty sure he's said that. And I hope he never does. He's perfect in NXT. Now, when I say NXT is their developmental territory, which I don't consider it a third brand. But like when they bring down like a Charlotte or like a Finn Balor because they moved to USA Network, I put Tommaso Ciampa in that category of like with the Charlottes and the Finns that are down there in developmental, like by choice. But he's a main roster guy, no doubt about it. Like I said, he's a main roster guy that I hope never gets called up. He's just too good. He's just too fucking good. And I'm looking forward to his match next week at the Bash. Looks to be like a pretty good tag team program. Cut a hell of a promo this week. And again, I'm sure it was written to some degree, but it didn't feel like it was written. So I really enjoyed it. So good stuff. Good fucking stuff. And then you cut to outside. A shoot-style, outside the building altercation between Gargano and Kross. And my favorite part about it was that Gargano talked into the camera. There's no way Vince watches fucking NXT. Even though it's on USA, I guarantee, maybe he watches like 5 minutes here and there. But you had Walter calling it a sport a couple months ago. You had Gargano looking directly into the camera. Like, oh my God. Like, because we're supposed to be stupid, right? We're not supposed to know that they know there's cameramen fucking filming what they're doing. So, that was so refreshing. The only exception they ever made in the past, like, 15, 16 years is they always let Cena, on his entrance, like, shout to the cameraman. Because he's Super Cena and, gets away with whatever he wants to do. Which is cool. He earned it. But I really, really, really love that. And that's what I got for NXT. We're going to leave you with... I know I did not watch Raw this past Monday. I did not watch SmackDown last Friday, even though this is SmackDown pregame. Because I do these fucking wrestling pregame shows whenever I want. So I hope this gets you geared up for SmackDown. But I did watch the Broken Skull sessions with Mick Foley just before I go live for this broadcast. And very entertaining 2 hours. I highly suggest if you're on the Peacock, you go watch it. I'm just going to give you some cliff notes. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Don't let some of the information I'm going to tell you not watch it, because I'm just going to go over at a very high level. And it's probably some stories you know, some stories you don't. But they went into great detail about how back in WCW. Now keep in mind, if you ever watched old early 90s WCW, And I even noticed this as a kid when I would watch WCW. I wouldn't watch a lot of it, but I'd watch some. The ropes were like, not ropes. I used to call the ropes like pipe cleaners because they were like almost looked like steel ropes. Again, I forgot to hit the cough button. I just got to start thinking before I cough. You must think like a cougher. But yeah, that's when they talked about when Mick lost his ear because he was in this spot where like his neck was in between the second and third rope, I guess, or the top and second rope, and his ear was like caught, and it was kind of just like sort of jigsawing his ear off, and his ear fucking fell off in the ring. But he went into great detail about that. That was, I think, his first main event match that he ever had in his career, in like the big leagues, and it was with Vader. They went over his match at Mind Games with Shawn Michaels in Your House Mind Games. Now, I remember that show. I don't remember, I remember the show existing, and I remember that I watched it, but I really don't remember much else. If I had to guess, I probably could have told you Mick Foley would have been in the main event if it was called Mind Games. I just wouldn't know. I probably would have guessed it was against Undertaker. Totally forgot it was against Shawn Michaels for the championship. But what I didn't know is both of those guys, HBK and Mick Foley, consider that to be a top 10 match in both of their careers, which is pretty cool. So I'm definitely going to go back and watch that because that's something I would have never even thought of. For all you wrestling fans out there, I suggest you do the same. Then he talked about when Mankind would come to the ring when Austin was out there looking for a tag team partner, and he had like a necklace with like a sign attached to the necklace that said "Pick me, Steve," with like an arrow like pointing to his face. And Steve would just like beat the shit out of him every week in and week out. And then I guess that's when he started doing the vignettes with Jim Ross, where he would evolve into Dude Love, and then Dude Love, eventually comes out to save the day and win the tag belts with Austin. So good shit, man. I mean, it just reminded me of like when this stuff was really, really good and everybody was watching it. I mean, everybody was watching it. And then who can forget King of the Ring 98? His match was with The Undertaker. The one takeaway, you don't need to relive that match through my words, but the one takeaway I didn't know was when they gurneyed Mick out and he got off the gurney and went back up to the cage and Taker chokeslams him through the cage. That was a fucking shoot. Meaning that the roof of that cage was not supposed to collapse. He was supposed to like indent the cage with his body. Instead the thing just collapsed. But and then like he was beating the shit. Undertaker went down into the ring and started beating the shit out of Terry Funk to kill time to let Mick recover a little bit. And apparently, when Mick brought out the thumbtacks in that match, he believes that was the first time thumbtacks were ever used in North America. So go figure. I wouldn't have known that. And it just reminded me of when the WWF at the time just really put out what I would say is earth-shattering, entertaining fucking programming. And it appealed to a wide range of audience. And again, it was presented as a shoot. And that's why the ratings were where they were then, and that's why the ratings are where they are now. And that's just the way it is. Another thing I didn't know, when he used to have those really brutal matches with The Rock, I didn't realize, and I don't think anybody would have known this, that was deliberate by Mick Foley to kind of give The Rock a harder edge leading up to his feud with Austin, like the main event feud that they would have. So that made a lot of sense. That was pretty interesting. Another thing that's really funny is that should put butts in seats from Tony Schiavone, right? We all know what that means. And if you don't, you shouldn't be watching this fucking show. Get the fuck out of here. Apparently, like a week later, fucking after like the ratings came out, Mick left like a very respectful message to Tony about like, I really work worked hard at WCW. I thought I was better than that for you to make a comment like that, blah, 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 blah. And apparently Tony called the Foley house back, crying. He was like, look, Mick, I'm really sorry. He wasn't laughing, he was crying. I was just doing what I was told to do. I really don't believe those things about you and whatever. And I like Schiavone, man. He seems like a good dude, but he's got to get rid of that fucking earring on AEW. And then the last thing that I found interesting was he talked about his WrestleMania 22 match with Edge, which I believe was his last match, because he had a few last matches, but I think that was like his last match. And that was really good. I went back and rewatched that match so many times back in like 06, 07. And something I talk a lot about on the show is WrestleMania rewatchability over the last decade. I just don't think it's there. It's too long. There's too much bullshit. It could be 4 hours. That's fine. But now it's like 7-8 hours pre-game and whatever. And it just drags and drags and drags. And the in-ring time never changes, by the way. The in-ring time from like WrestleMania 7 to like this year's WrestleMania, which was over 2 nights, it was like the same amount of in-ring action time, like bell to bell. So you just got to trim the fucking fat. Because like the big four, I used to always enjoy rewatching them up until not that long ago, to be honest with you. But that match is an example of something that's like very easily rewatchable. And that whole pay-per-view, nobody really talks about WrestleMania 22 as being like one of the greatest of all time. But that Edge versus Mick Foley match was an awesome attraction match. And whether we loved it or hated it, at the time I hated it, it solidified Cena as the man. Anywho, that's all I got for you Juiceheads this week on Pro Wrestling Pregame Smackdown Edition. So this will drop sometime on Friday. So if you're seeing this on Friday, which you will be, except for my one live viewer, enjoy SmackDown if there's anything to fucking enjoy about it. And we'll come at you next week now that we're getting back on track here with the programming. So peace the fuck out, and thank you so much for joining us on SmackDown Pregame.